Captain Jake Martinez had exactly 3 rules for diplomatic missions: never drink the local water, always pack extra coffee, and try not to start any interstellar wars before lunch. So far, he was batting 2 out of 3, which frankly was better than his usual average. "You know what I love about space?" Jake said to nobody in particular, feet propped up on the conference table of the diplomatic vessel Olive Branch. "It's so peaceful, so quiet, so completely lacking in people trying to kill me." The view screen showed Harmony Hub, a neutral space station that looked like someone had crossed a shopping mall with a spaceship and decided to paint it beige. Jake had been here for 3 days mediating trade negotiations between Earth and the Kythara, and honestly, it was the most relaxing assignment he'd had in years. The Kythara were basically the galaxy's answer to living mushrooms, if mushrooms could walk, talk, and change colors based on their emotions. They were about 4 feet tall, had soft, spongy skin that shifted through a rainbow spectrum, and possessed the collective aggression of a basket of puppies. In other words, they were perfect allies for humanity's current, let's try not to blow up the galaxy phase of foreign policy. Captain Martinez, came a melodic voice from the door. Ambassador Fluff waddled in, his cap-like head glowing a cheerful pink that meant he was excited about something. The Kythara had chosen human names for diplomatic purposes, though Jake suspected someone had been having a bit too much fun with the translation software. "What's got you all rosy, Fluff?" Jake asked, not moving from his relaxed position. "The mineral rights agreement. We have reached terms most favorable." Fluff's pink deepened to magenta, which Jake had learned meant practically vibrating with joy. "Your species will receive 30% of the dilithium output, and we retain cultural preservation rights for the sacred spore caves." Jake nodded approvingly. The Kythara were sitting on some of the richest dilithium deposits in the galaxy, but they'd rather die than let anyone disturb their sacred anything. Most species would have just taken the minerals by force, but humans had learned the value of having allies who actually liked them. Plus, the Kythara made excellent coffee substitutes from their natural spores, which was honestly worth the diplomatic effort alone. "Sounds like a win-win," Jake said, finally sitting up. "Though I have to ask, what makes spore caves sacred anyway?" Fluff's color shifted to a thoughtful blue. "They are where we contemplate the great mysteries of existence. Also excellent acoustics for singing." "Right. Of course they are." The past few months had been exactly this boring, and Jake was starting to think he might actually enjoy a career where people shot at him less frequently. The galaxy was in one of its rare peaceful periods, trade was flowing, and the biggest diplomatic crisis he'd handled recently was a dispute over bathroom facilities on a joint research station. "Captain," his communications officer Lieutenant Barnes called from the bridge, "we're receiving a priority transmission from the Galactic Trade Commission. They want to schedule the signing ceremony for next week." "Tell them Tuesday works for me," Jake replied. "I'll be the one in the dress uniform looking like I'd rather be anywhere else." Fluff giggled, a sound like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "You humans have such interesting attitudes toward ceremony. We find ritual quite meaningful." "Yeah, well, you also think watching paint dry is entertainment," Jake said affectionately. The Kythara had introduced him to their concept of contemplative observation, which was basically meditation but with more staring at walls. The peaceful moment was interrupted by Barnes' voice, now carrying a note of concern. "Captain, we have multiple contacts dropping out of hyperspace. They're not on the scheduled arrivals list." Jake felt his relaxation evaporate. In his experience, unscheduled arrivals usually meant someone was about to have a very bad day. Only on screen. The view screen shifted to show space around Harmony Hub, where ships were materializing in flashes of blue light. Not just any ships either, but the distinctive angular designs of the Skarrion Empire. Jake counted at least a dozen vessels, all of them bristling with weapons and painted in the aggressive red and black color scheme that screamed, "We're here to ruin your day." "Well," Jake said, standing up slowly, "there goes my peaceful afternoon." Fluff's color had shifted to a deep purple, which Jake had learned meant terrified beyond rational thought. The little ambassador was literally shaking, his cap-like head quivering as he stared at the screen. The Skarrions, Fluff whispered. But we have done nothing wrong. We have followed all galactic treaties. Jake put a reassuring hand on Fluff's shoulder, feeling the soft, spongy texture of Kythara skin. Hey, don't worry. They're probably just here to intimidate someone else. You know how the Skarrions are, all bluster and no bite. Even as he said it, Jake knew he was lying. The Skarrion Empire had been expanding aggressively for the past decade, and their idea of diplomacy usually involved plasma cannons and re-education camps. They were the galaxy's neighborhood bullies, and they'd been eyeing the Kythara homeworld for months. Captain, Barnes called again. The lead Skarrion vessel is hailing us. Jake straightened his uniform and tried to look diplomatic rather than like someone who was already planning 3 different ways to kill whoever was about to appear on his screen. Put them through. Time to see what the reptilian jerks wanted this time. The view screen flickered to life, revealing exactly what Jake had expected, 7 feet of angry reptilian muscle crammed into a military uniform that probably cost more than his ship. General Vex Grimthorn of the Skarrion Empire looked like someone had crossed a crocodile with a bodybuilder and then given the result serious anger management issues. Human, Vex growled, the word dripping with disdain. You will identify yourself. Captain Jake Martinez, Earth Diplomatic Corps, Jake replied, keeping his voice level. And you would be? General Vex Grimthorn, Supreme Commander of the Skarrion Third Fleet. Vex's yellow eyes narrowed. You are in violation of Skarrion territorial claims. Jake blinked. I'm sorry, what? This is Harmony Hub, a neutral station. Has been for 30 years. Nobody owns it. Incorrect. As of today, this sector falls under Skarrion jurisdiction. Vex's forked tongue flicked out, tasting the air in what Jake assumed was some kind of threatening gesture. All foreign vessels will comply with new regulations or face enforcement action. Behind Jake, Fluff had gone from purple to an almost black color that he'd never seen before. The little Kythara was backing toward the door, his whole body trembling. Jake didn't blame him. The Skarrions had a reputation for enforcing their will with plasma bombardments and mass relocations. Look, General, Jake said, trying to channel his diplomatic training, I'm sure we can work something out. Maybe discuss this over coffee? I make a mean cup, and I hear you reptile types are big on caffeine. Vex's expression didn't change, which was probably for the best since Jake was pretty sure Skarrion smiles involved showing way too many teeth. There is nothing to discuss. The Kythara will cease all relations with humanity immediately. They will submit to Skarrion guidance for their own protection. Protection from what exactly? Jake asked, though he already knew the answer. From the corrupting influence of human expansion. The Kythara are a simple species, easily led astray. They require proper supervision. Jake felt his diplomatic mask slipping. Supervision. Right. And by supervision you mean strip mining their worlds and turning them into slave labor? Re-education and resource optimization, Vex corrected. Standard procedures for primitive species integration. Primitive? Jake's voice rose slightly. The Kythara were building interstellar trade networks when your species was still figuring out fire. Vex's tail lashed behind him, a clear sign of agitation. Your emotional attachment to these creatures is noted. However, it is irrelevant. You have 72 hours to remove all human presence from Kythara space. After that, we will consider any human vessels in the sector to be hostile. And if we refuse, then you will learn why the Skarrion Empire is the dominant force in this quadrant. Vex's smile revealed rows of serrated teeth. We have conquered 17 species in the past decade. Most required only minor persuasion. Jake glanced at Fluff, who had somehow managed to turn an even darker shade of terror. The little ambassador was practically vibrating with fear, his color cycling through what Jake recognized as the Kythara equivalent of a panic attack. 72 hours, Vex repeated. Use them wisely. The transmission cut out, leaving Jake staring at the Skarrion fleet formation on the main screen. 12 ships, all of them built for war, rather than exploration. The Skarrions didn't believe in subtle diplomacy. They believed in overwhelming force and making examples of anyone who stood in their way. Captain Martinez, Fluff said quietly, his voice barely above a whisper, "My people cannot fight the Skarrions. We are not warriors." "I know, buddy. Buddy. Perhaps it would be best if we agreed to their terms. Humanity has other allies. You do not need to risk war for us." Jake turned to face the little alien, seeing genuine concern in his large, dark eyes. Fluff wasn't just scared for his own species, he was worried about dragging humanity into a conflict they might not be able to win. "Fluff," Jake said, his voice taking on a tone that made his bridge crew look up sharply. "Let me explain something about humans. We don't abandon our friends. Ever. And we really don't like bullies. But the Skarrion Empire is vast. They have defeated so many others. Yeah, well, they've never fought Earth before." Jake moved to his command chair, already mentally composing his report to Fleet Command. "Barnes, get me a priority channel to Admiral Valdez. Encrypt it with the Omega protocols." "Sir, Omega protocols are for wartime communications only." "Then it's a good thing we're about to have a war." Jake settled into his chair, feeling the familiar weight of command settling on his shoulders. "Also, send a message to the Kythara High Council. Tell them Earth stands with them, whatever happens." Fluff's color began to shift toward a hopeful yellow. "You would truly risk conflict with the Skarrions for us?" Jake looked at the innocent little alien, thinking about all the times Fluff had shared his people's coffee substitute during late-night negotiations, all the stories about Kythara culture and their peaceful way of life. Then he thought about Vex's casually dismissive attitude toward an entire species' freedom. "Fluff," Jake said, "you're about to learn why humanity earned its reputation in this galaxy. And the Skarrions are about to learn why that reputation exists." On the view screen, the Skarrion fleet continued its intimidating patrol pattern, their ship's weapons systems clearly visible and obviously charged. They looked confident, secure in their superiority. Jake smiled, and it wasn't a nice smile. 72 hours, huh? That should be just enough time. "Enough time for what, Captain?" Barnes asked. "For the Skarrions to realize they just made the biggest mistake of their reptilian lives." Section 3, The Line in the Sand. The holographic projector hummed to life in Jake's ready room, casting the familiar blue-tinted image of Admiral Rosa Valdez across the small space. Even in hologram form, she looked exactly like what she was, a woman who had spent 30 years turning interstellar incidents into object lessons about why you didn't mess with Earth. "Jake," she said without preamble, "please tell me you're calling because you're bored and want to complain about the food." "I wish. The Skarrions just declared the Kythara sector to be under their jurisdiction. They're giving us 72 hours to abandon our allies or face military action." Valdez's expression didn't change, but Jake had worked with her long enough to recognize the subtle tightening around her eyes. "Is that so? How thoughtful of them to provide a timeline." "Rosa, they're not bluffing. Vex Grimthorn is leading their third fleet personally. 12 heavy cruisers, all armed to the teeth." Vex Grimthorn. Valdez seemed to consider this. Didn't he personally oversee the conquest of the Melari system? Among others. The guy's got a track record of turning peaceful species into forced labor. Valdez turned slightly, addressing someone off-screen. "Tommy, bring me the current deployment status of the 5th and 7th fleets." A younger voice responded from outside the hologram's range. "Admiral, The Fifth Fleet is currently conducting training exercises in the Centauri system. Seventh Fleet is on patrol duty along the Outer Rim. Both are at full strength. Good. Jake, I want you to listen carefully. You are not to engage the Skarrions directly. You are not to escalate the situation. You are to maintain your current position and await further instructions. Jake felt his stomach drop. Rosa, you're not seriously considering abandoning the Kythara? Of course not. Valdez's smile was sharp enough to cut steel. I'm considering demonstrating to the Skarrions why Earth doesn't negotiate with terrorists. Tommy, get me Fleet Command on a priority channel. Tell them we're implementing Protocol 7. Protocol 7? Jake had never heard of it. It's new. We developed it after the Rigelian incident last year. Essentially, it's our response to any species that threatens our allies with genocide. Valdez's tone was conversational, as if she were discussing the weather. The short version is that we remind the galaxy why humans don't make idle threats. The younger voice spoke again. Admiral, I have Fleet Command. They're asking for confirmation of threat assessment. Tell them Code Black. Full mobilization authorized. Jake whistled low. Code Black was reserved for existential threats to humanity or its allies. The last time it had been declared, the Zephyrian Confederacy had learned why blockading human trade routes was a career-limiting decision. Jake, Valdez continued, I need you to do something for me. Contact the Kythara High Council and tell them that Earth is honored by their friendship. Tell them that friends don't abandon friends, and that we consider any attack on Kythara worlds to be an attack on Earth itself. And if the Skarrions call our bluff? It's not a bluff. Valdez's image flickered as the connection strengthened. Tommy, status report. Both fleets are spinning up for immediate deployment. Estimated time to Kythara space is 48 hours at maximum burn. Also, Admiral, I'm reading interesting energy signatures from the Skarrion fleet. They're not just threatening, they're actually preparing for combat operations. Then we'd better not keep them waiting. Jake, hold your position. Help is coming. The hologram cut out, leaving Jake alone with the distinct feeling that he'd just witnessed the opening moves of something the galaxy wasn't prepared for. He'd served with Valdez for 10 years, and he'd never seen her quite this focused. A soft chime announced Fluff's presence at his door. Captain Martinez, may I enter? Of course, Fluff. Come in. The little Kythara entered, his color a swirling mix of anxiety and hope. I have been speaking with my people. The High Council wishes to know if Earth truly intends to stand with us.
Jake stood, moving to face his friend directly. Fluff, I want you to understand something. When humans make friends, we don't do it halfway. And when someone threatens our friends, we take it personally.
But surely the cost would be too great. The Skarrions are powerful. You know what the Skarrions are? They're bullies. And humans have a really simple philosophy about bullies. Jake's voice hardened. We punch them in the face until they stop being bullies. Fluff's color shifted to a brighter yellow. The High Council has also asked me to inform you that if war comes, the Kythara will not be defenseless. We may be peaceful, but we are not helpless. What do you mean? Our worlds have been preparing for Skarrion expansion for months. We have contingencies. Jake raised an eyebrow. Contingencies? It is difficult to explain in human terms. But the Kythara have been pacifists for centuries, not because we cannot fight, but because we choose not to. However, when survival is at stake, we are capable of great adaptability. That's actually pretty ominous coming from you, Fluff. We prefer to think of it as practical. Fluff's color shifted to a determined orange. We will not make it easy for the Skarrions to conquer us. And if Earth stands with us, we will stand with Earth. Jake felt a surge of pride for his unlikely ally. Then let's show these reptilian jerks what happens when they pick on the wrong species. Captain, Barnes' voice came through the comm. We're receiving a transmission from the Kythara homeworld. They're requesting immediate conference with you and Ambassador Fluff. Put them through to the conference room. And Barnes? Monitor all Skarrion communications. I want to know the moment they so much as sneeze. Yes, sir. As Jake and Fluff headed for the conference room, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that the next 48 hours would either secure peace in the sector or start the largest interstellar war in recent memory. Either way, the Skarrions were about to learn why threatening Earth's friends was a mistake they'd only make once. 47 hours and 36 minutes after General Vex Grimthorn's ultimatum, his fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kythara home system. Vex stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Dominion, watching the peaceful blue-green world of Kythara Prime rotating slowly on his view screen. Soon it would be another jewel in the Skarrion Empire's crown. General, his tactical officer reported, we're detecting standard civilian traffic around the planet. No sign of human military vessels. Excellent. It appears the humans have seen wisdom in abandoning their primitive allies. Vex's forked tongue flicked out in satisfaction. Begin standard intimidation protocols. I want all civilian vessels to witness Skarrion superiority. Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the planet's surface. They're asking us to state our intentions. Inform them that they are now under Skarrion protection. Resistance will be met with appropriate force. The tactical officer's head suddenly snapped up from his console. General, we have multiple contacts materializing on the system's edge. They're human ships. Vex's yellow eyes narrowed. How many? Scanning now, sir. I count 43 vessels. No, wait, more are arriving. 6781, General, they're still coming. The view screen shifted to show the outer system, where ship after ship was dropping out of hyperspace in perfect formation. Not just any ships, but the distinctive angular designs of Earth's defense fleet. Destroyers, cruisers, dreadnoughts, and something that looked like it could crack planets in half. General, communications reported, were being hailed by the lead human vessel.
Put them through.
The screen flickered to reveal Admiral Rosa Valdez, looking exactly as calm and professional as if she were conducting a routine inspection. Behind her, Jake could see the bridge of what was obviously a military command ship, not a diplomatic vessel. General Grimthorn, Valdez said pleasantly, I'm Admiral Valdez of the Earth Defense Fleet. I believe you have something that belongs to us. Admiral, you are in violation of Skarrion territorial claims. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences. Territorial claims? Valdez's eyebrows rose slightly. I'm sorry, but I don't recall the Kythara requesting Skarrion protection. In fact, I believe they specifically requested Earth's assistance. The Kythara are a primitive species requiring guidance. They are not capable of making such decisions independently. Primitive. Valdez's tone didn't change, but something in her eyes went very cold. General, let me clarify something for you. These are our friends, and we protect our friends. Your threats are meaningless. The Skarrion Empire has conquered 17 species. We will not be intimidated by human posturing. Posturing. Valdez turned to someone off-screen. Tommy, would you mind showing the General our current deployment? A younger man's voice responded cheerfully. Certainly, Admiral. General Grimthorn, you're currently facing the 5th and 7th fleets, plus elements of the 3rd. That's roughly 120 ships, including the EDS Retribution, our newest dreadnought. She's got experimental weapons systems that we've been eager to field test. Vex felt his tail lash involuntarily. Even the Skarrion Empire didn't casually deploy over 100 warships for intimidation purposes. Additionally, the young voice continued, we've been monitoring your communications for the past 48 hours. We know your fleet composition, your tactical doctrine, and your lunch menu. Did you know your commissary officer has been skimming from the general fund? Impossible, Vex growled. Our communications are encrypted. Were encrypted, Valdez corrected. Commander Park is quite gifted with xenotechnology. Tommy, show him the other thing. The view screen split, showing the Kythara homeworld. But now, instead of the peaceful blue-green sphere Vex had observed, the planet was glowing. Not with weapons fire, but with a soft, pulsing light that seemed to emanate from the planet itself. What is that? Vex demanded. Bioluminescent communication, the young commander explained. The Kythara have been upgrading their natural abilities with human technology. That signal you're seeing, it's being broadcast to every inhabited world in the galaxy. Think of it as a distress call, but one that includes full tactical data on your fleet's position and capabilities. You're bluffing. Am I? Valdez's smile was sharp. Tommy, patch me through to the Galactic Council. The screen shifted again, showing the familiar chambers of the Galactic Council. Representatives from dozens of species were present, all of them looking directly at the camera with expressions ranging from concern to barely contained rage. Admiral Valdez, the council speaker, said, "We have received the Kythara distress signal. The council unanimously condemns the Skarrion Empire's unprovoked aggression and authorizes any necessary response." Unanimous? Vex's voice cracked slightly. The Kythara are beloved throughout the galaxy, the speaker continued. Their peaceful nature and cultural contributions have made them friends to all civilized species. Your threat against them is considered an act of barbarity. The transmission cut back to Valdez, who was now flanked by Jake and a young officer who was presumably Commander Park. All three of them looked remarkably calm for people who had just orchestrated a galactic diplomatic crisis. "So, General," Valdez said, "you have a choice. You can withdraw your forces and return to Skarrion space, or you can test your 12 ships against our 120. Plus whatever forces our allies decide to send. You cannot be serious about risking interstellar war over these creatures." Jake stepped forward, his expression anything but diplomatic. "General, let me explain something about humans. We don't make threats, we make promises. And I promise you that if you fire one shot at a Kythara world, Earth will make sure the Skarrion Empire becomes a cautionary tale. Your emotional attachment to these beings is a weakness." "No," Valdez said quietly, "it's our strength. You see, General, empires are built on fear. But alliances are built on trust. And trust is what wins wars." Commander Park cleared his throat. "Admiral, I'm detecting weapons build up on the Skarrion flagship. They're preparing to fire." "Are they?" Valdez's smile turned predatory. "Well then, I suppose we'll have to show them why that's a bad idea. All ships, battle stations." The view screen filled with the sight of over 100 human warships powering up their weapons systems simultaneously. The combined energy signatures were bright enough to light up the entire system. "Last chance, General," Valdez said. "Withdraw now, or learn why humans don't make idle threats." Vex stared at the overwhelming display of firepower, his reptilian brain finally grasping what he had stumbled into. This wasn't a simple conquest. This was the moment the Skarrion Empire had bitten off more than it could chew. "Fire," he whispered. "And the galaxy learned why you never threaten Earth's friends." The first salvo from the Skarrion fleet lit up space like a miniature star going nova. Plasma bolts and particle beams lanced toward the human formation, the kind of overwhelming firepower that had cowed 17 species into submission. They might as well have been throwing rocks at a hurricane.
Evasive maneuvers, return fire, Admiral Valdez commanded, her voice as calm as if she were ordering coffee. "Show them how it's done."
The human fleet moved like a living thing, ships peeling away from the Skarrion attack with precision that spoke of endless drilling and combat experience. Return fire came not as a desperate response, but as a calculated demonstration of superior firepower. Jake watched from the bridge of the olive branch, now firmly nestled in the protective formation of the Fifth Fleet. Barnes, patch me through to the tactical net. I want to hear this. Sir, we're not equipped for military communications. Tommy Park owes me a favor. Tommy, you listening? Commander Park's voice crackled through the comm. Hey Jake, want to hear something funny? The Skarrions are using standard Imperial attack patterns. The same ones they've used for the past 50 years. And that's funny because we've been studying them. Every battle, every conquest, every tactical manual they've ever published. They're fighting the last war, and we're fighting the next one. On the view screen, Jake could see the human fleet's response unfolding. Instead of meeting the Skarrion attack head-on, they were flowing around it, using the enemy's own momentum against them. It was like watching a master martial artist redirect a charging bull. Jake, Valdez's voice cut through the tactical chatter. I need you to do something for me. Take your ship and get close to the Skarrion flagship. I want to deliver a message personally. Rosa, that's suicide. The Olive Branch is a diplomatic vessel. Trust me. You'll be fine. Jake looked at his bridge crew, all of whom were staring at him with expressions that clearly said, please don't get us killed. He sighed. Barnes, take us toward the Dominion. Full speed. Yeah. Sir, that's the enemy flagship. I know. Sometimes diplomacy requires getting close enough to punch someone in the face. The Olive Branch accelerated toward the center of the battle, its diplomatic transponder broadcasting frantically. Jake had to admit, it took a special kind of insanity to fly a lightly armed ship toward a dreadnought in the middle of a firefight. Jake, Tommy's voice crackled through the comm, you're about to see why we've been upgrading Kythara technology. Look at your sensor display. Jake glanced down at his sensors and blinked. The Kythara homeworld was literally glowing brighter, its bioluminescent signal now visible to the naked eye. But more than that, the signal was being picked up and amplified by every Kythara colony world in the sector.
It's beautiful, Fluff said from beside him, his color shifting to a proud gold. My people are singing. Singing? A song of defiance. A song of hope. A song that tells the galaxy that the Kythara will not be conquered. The combined signal from dozens of worlds was creating a resonance effect that was disrupting Skarrion communications and targeting systems. Jake realized that the Kythara's contingency plan was turning their entire species into a living, breathing jamming array. Clever little mushrooms, Jake muttered. Captain, Barnes called out, we're being hailed by the Skarrion flagship. Put them through. General Vex Grimthorn appeared on screen, and he looked nothing like the confident predator who had delivered ultimatums 48 hours ago. His uniform was disheveled, his eyes wild, and his forked tongue was flicking out rapidly in what Jake recognized as extreme agitation.
Human.
This is madness. You risk galactic war for these worthless creatures. Actually, Jake said, settling back in his chair, I think you're the one who started a galactic war. We're just finishing it. The Skarrion Empire will not be defeated by human arrogance. Vex, buddy, let me explain something to you. Jake's voice took on the patient tone of someone addressing a particularly slow child. You made two mistakes. First, you threatened our friends. Second, you assumed we were bluffing. Your fleet cannot defeat the entire Skarrion Empire. Who said anything about defeating the entire empire? Jake smiled. We're just going to defeat you. And then we're going to defeat whoever they send next. And the next one after that. Until the Skarrion Empire figures out that threatening our friends is a really, really bad idea. Impossible. Is it? Jake gestured to his view screen, which showed the tactical situation. Of the 12 Skarrion ships, 4 were already disabled, 3 more were taking heavy damage, and the remainder were trying to retreat. How's that working out for you? Vex's response was cut off as the Dominion shuddered under a direct hit from the Idiot's retribution. Sparks flew from control panels, and Jake could hear shouting in the background. Vex, Jake said gently, it's over. Surrender now, and we'll make sure your crew survives this. Ever. The Skarrion Empire does not surrender. Your funeral. Jake nodded to Barnes, who cut the transmission. What followed was less a battle than a demonstration. The human fleet systematically disabled the remaining Skarrion ships with surgical precision, targeting weapons and engines while leaving life support intact. It was the kind of overwhelming tactical superiority that left no room for doubt about who was in control. Jake Valdez's voice came through the comm. Boarding parties are ready. I want to do the honors. Jake looked at Fluff, who had turned a brilliant shade of gold that Jake had never seen before. What do you think, buddy? Want to come meet your would-be conqueror? I would be honored, Captain Martinez. 20 minutes later, Jake found himself in the main cargo bay of the Dominion, surrounded by defeated Skarrion crew members and a very unhappy General Vex Grimthorn. The reptilian officer was bound in restraints, his yellow eyes burning with impotent rage. General, Jake said, approaching the prisoner, you wanted to discuss terms? I will tell you nothing, human. Oh, I'm not here to interrogate you. I'm here to deliver a message. Jake smiled. You see, the galaxy is watching this. Every species, every government, every two-bit dictator with delusions of grandeur. And they're all going to learn the same lesson. What lesson? Jake's smile turned cold. That humanity keeps its promises. We promised to protect the Kythara. And we did. We promised to stop you. And we did. And now we're promising something else. What? That anyone who threatens our friends will end up exactly where you are right now. Defeated, humiliated, and serving as an object lesson for the next idiot who thinks they can intimidate Earth's allies. X's tail lashed weakly. The Empire will not forget this. I'm counting on it, Jake said. Because the next time the Skarrion Empire wants to threaten someone, they'll remember what happened to you. And maybe, just maybe, they'll decide to try diplomacy instead. As Jake turned to leave, Fluff approached the bound general. The little Kythara had shifted to a deep, somber blue that Jake had never seen before. General Grimthorn, Fluff said quietly, I am sorry that it came to this. My people believe in peace, but we also believe in justice. Perhaps during your time in custody, you will learn the difference. Vex stared at the small alien, confusion replacing rage in his eyes. You forgive me? I forgive you, Fluff said simply. But forgiveness does not mean forgetting, nor does it mean allowing you to harm others. Jake felt a surge of pride for his friend. Even in victory, the Kythara remained true to their principles. Come on, Fluff, Jake said. Let's go home. 3 months later, Jake was back in his familiar position, feet up on the conference table, coffee cup in hand, and trying to pretend that being a galactic hero didn't come with an ungodly amount of paperwork. You know, he said to Ambassador Fluff, who was sitting across from him with his own cup of spore coffee, I miss the days when my biggest problem was bathroom disputes on research stations. Fluff's color shifted to an amused pink. Perhaps, but think of all the good that has come from our little adventure. Jake had to admit, the galaxy had changed quite a bit since the Battle of Kythara Prime, as the history books were already calling it. The Skarrion Empire had collapsed within weeks of General Vex's capture, their member species taking the opportunity to declare independence faster than you could say regime change. What had once been a militaristic empire was now a collection of free worlds, most of which were falling over themselves to join the Galactic Alliance. Any word on our favorite former general? Jake asked. Vex is doing well in the agricultural rehabilitation program on Kythara 7, Fluff replied, his color shifting to a satisfied gold. He has discovered a talent for mushroom cultivation. Who would have thought? Jake nearly choked on his coffee. The idea of the galaxy's most feared military commander tending to fungal gardens was so absurd it was almost poetic. Please tell me someone got pictures. Many pictures. He seems to find the work calming. The rehabilitation program had been Fluff's idea naturally. Rather than traditional imprisonment, the Kythara had suggested that former Skarrion officers could learn about the species they had tried to conquer by working alongside them. It was so thoroughly civilized that it made Jake's human sensibilities feel positively barbaric by comparison. Captain Martinez, Lieutenant Barnes called from the bridge. We're receiving a priority transmission from Earth Command. Admiral Valdez wants to speak with you. Put her through to the ready room, Jake said, standing and stretching. Fluff want to come hear what new impossible mission they've got for us. I would be delighted. They made their way to the ready room, where Admiral Valdez's hologram was already waiting. She looked exactly as professional as always, but Jake thought he detected a hint of amusement in her eyes. Jake, I have good news and bad news. Hit me with the bad news first. The Regellian Syndicate has been making aggressive moves toward the Centauri colonies. They seem to think that with the Skarrion Empire gone, there's a power vacuum they can exploit. Jake sighed. And the good news? The good news is that they specifically requested that Earth not send you to handle the negotiations. What? Valdez's smile was sharp. Apparently, your reputation precedes you. The Regellians have heard about what happened to the Skarrions and would prefer to deal with someone less decisive. Jake looked at Fluff, who had turned a delighted shade of yellow. They're afraid of me? Terrified might be more accurate. The entire galaxy has heard about the human who convinced Earth to deploy 2 full fleets to protect his friends. Your name is becoming synonymous with don't mess with this guy's allies. That's actually kind of flattering. It gets better. The Galactic Council has asked specifically for you to handle the Regellian situation. They want to send a message that threatening peaceful species is no longer acceptable. Jake felt the familiar weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. So what you're saying is I'm becoming the galaxy's unofficial enforcer of don't be a jerk to peaceful species. Essentially, yes, the Council is calling it the Martinez Doctrine. The Martinez Doctrine? If you threaten Earth's allies, you get Jake Martinez and everything that comes with him. It's surprisingly effective as a deterrent. Fluff's color had shifted to a proud gold. Captain Martinez, you have become a symbol of hope for peaceful species throughout the galaxy. The Kythara High Council has voted to name a spore variety after you. A spore variety? The Jacus Martinezi. It is known for its resilience and protective properties. Jake wasn't sure whether to be honored or horrified. There's a fungus named after me. A very nice fungus, Fluff assured him. It grows well in adverse conditions and protects other plants from harmful organisms. That's actually a pretty good metaphor for what we do. Valdez cleared her throat. As entertaining as this is, I do need an answer about the Regellian situation. Are you willing to take on another diplomatic mission? Jake looked at Fluff, who nodded encouragingly. Then he thought about the Regellian Syndicate, a collection of aggressive traitors who had been pushing the boundaries of acceptable behavior for years. They weren't as militaristic as the Skarrions, but they had a reputation for economic intimidation and resource exploitation. Rosa, let me ask you something. Do the Regellians have a history of threatening peaceful species? They've been pressuring the Centauri colonies for months. Nothing overtly military, but they've been making it clear that cooperation would be healthier than resistance. And the Centauri are asking for help. They've formally requested Earth's assistance under the Alliance protection protocols. Jake stood up, feeling the familiar surge of purpose that came with defending the underdog. Then I guess it's time to introduce the Regellians to the Martinez Doctrine. I was hoping you'd say that. Valdez's smile was genuinely pleased. The Centauri delegation is waiting for you at Starbase 7. They're quite excited to meet the human who defeated the Skarrion Empire. I didn't defeat the Skarrion Empire. Earth's fleet defeated the Skarrion Empire. Jake, Valdez said gently, you convinced Earth to deploy that fleet. You turned a diplomatic incident into a moral imperative. That's not just good diplomacy, that's leadership. After the transmission ended, Jake sat quietly for a moment, processing what his life had become. 3 months ago, he'd been a minor diplomat handling trade negotiations. Now he was apparently the galaxy's go-to guy for teaching bullies better manners. Captain Martinez, Fluff said softly, are you troubled by this development? It's not troubled exactly. It's just, this isn't how I imagined my career would go. Perhaps not, but sometimes the galaxy needs someone who will stand up for those who cannot stand up for themselves. The Kythara are not the only peaceful species who have been threatened by those who mistake kindness for weakness. Jake looked at his friend, seeing the wisdom in those large, dark eyes. You know what, Fluff? You're right. If the galaxy wants to make me the poster boy for don't mess with peaceful species, then I guess that's what I'll be. And I will be honored to assist you in this endeavor. Good, because I'm going to need all the help I can get. Jake stood up, feeling the familiar energy of a new mission. Barnes, set course for Starbase 7. Maximum warp. Yes, sir. If I may ask, what should I tell the crew about our new mission? Jake smiled, thinking about the Regellian Syndicate and their reputation for economic intimidation. They were about to learn the same lesson the Skarrions had learned, that threatening Earth's friends was the fastest way to earn a personal visit from Captain Jake Martinez. Tell them we're going to make some new friends and teach some old bullies about the importance of playing nice. As the olive branch jumped to warp, Jake settled back into his chair with a sense of satisfaction. The galaxy was a big place, full of species who thought they could intimidate the peaceful and exploit the weak. But now they had to contend with something new, the knowledge that Earth was watching, Earth was listening, and Earth was more than willing to remind them that some things were worth fighting for. The Martinez doctrine was simple: be nice to peaceful species or deal with humans who took friendship very seriously. It was, Jake thought, a pretty good legacy to have. And somewhere in the Kythara system, a former Skarrion general was learning the therapeutic value of mushroom cultivation and proving that even the most aggressive species could learn to appreciate the quiet dignity of peaceful coexistence. The galaxy was changing, one diplomatic mission at a time.